All right, it is a massive week for Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs for a lot of different reasons. This is a big week for recruiting. Several top prospects from across the country will be in Athens throughout the week, but more importantly, spring practice starts. And I know for a fact this program, these coaches, these players, they are not thrilled at all with how last season ended. It was a very good season, a season that most programs would die for. They would kill to have the season Georgia just did. But they're out for blood this year. That loss to Alabama, I know, stung as bad as any loss they've had since probably losing in the national championship to that same Alabama team years ago. But this team's out for blood. They are locked in. They're ready to go. And I have several names that I'm going to have my eye on this week and next week throughout spring practice. So let's get into it real quick, right? Which players at each position do I think are bound for a big spring? These are players that you might not know of right now, this second, but by the end of the spring, I think you're going to hear some rumblings about these players. Now, we could start at quarterback, right? But Carson Beck's the guy. He's one of the best quarterbacks in college football. He can make a run at the Heisman. He could absolutely lead Georgia to a national championship. But this spring is big for Gunnar Stockton, too. He's now the number 2. There's no Brock Vandagriff in front of him. He's the number 2 quarterback. We're going to see a lot of him in the spring game, G-Day, April 13th, I believe. But I think Gunnar Stockton's going to play this year in the fall. I think this is a big spring for him to tell the coaches, hey, I'm not your average number 2. I'm not your average backup. I can play, and you need me to play, and you need some packages for me. He's got to show the staff, Mike Bobo, Kirby Smart, everyone, especially on the offensive staff, that he needs to be playing. Even though Carson Beck's very good, Gunnar Stockton needs to make a statement this spring and say, hey, I need a package or two. Get me in the game. I am a difference maker. I'm one of the best, most prolific quarterbacks ever in the history of high school football in the state of Georgia. I'm a guy you can win with. He needs to have a big spring, and I think he will. We're going to see some Gunnar Stockton this fall. He's just too good to keep on the bench. At running back, no Dell McGee at coach, right? He's the head coach at Georgia State. No Kendall Milton, no Dejan Edwards. No problem, in my opinion. Trevor Etienne is very good, and they've got some running backs, but they got to stay healthy. I think if Branson Robinson is healthy this year, or even for most of the season, if they can get him back even close to 100%, they're going to have a very good season running the football. And they're going to need him. They're going to need multiple running backs to beat Texas and Austin, to beat Ole Miss and Oxford, to beat Alabama on the road, Kentucky on the road. That's a game where you have to run the football. It's not easy for teams to go to Lexington. I know Kentucky's Kentucky, and they haven't beaten Georgia since Nam, or they probably won't beat Georgia anytime soon. But you need a strong running game when you play on the road. And if Branson Robinson can stay healthy and come anywhere close to what we saw flashes of 2 years ago, he's going to have a good year, and it's going to be really tough to stop the Georgia Bulldogs. I love the freshman trio they're bringing in. They're bringing in size, speed, power. They checked all the boxes there. Andrew Paul is a running back who played a little bit last year. He's another tackle breaker. And then Roderick Robinson. Roderick Robinson is still probably flying under the radar, but if you watched him last year as a true freshman, he's bouncing off tackles. I mean, there are linebackers just bouncing off of his thighs, bouncing off of his shoulders. When he was in the game, especially if you watch that Florida State, I don't even know the words to describe that total curb stomping beatdown they gave a top 5 Florida State team. I don't care how many linebackers are out. Roderick Robinson was trucking those dudes, just trucking them. He's going to have a big season, I think, too, if he can stay healthy. But it's all about health in that running back room. If they stay healthy, I don't see a defense on their schedule that can stop that many guys at 200-plus pounds. On the offensive line, Monroe Freeling is a guy that I think is only going to get better. He played a little bit last year as a true freshman. He's going to fight for that right tackle spot. It's going to be tough to beat because Xavier Truss has been on the team since... for forever, it feels like. It's probably only been 5-6 years. I think it was in that 2019 class with Trayvon Walker and Nolan Smith and Don Blaylock and George Pickens and the great Clay Webb, right? That was a joke. But Xavier Truss has been around for a while. He came back to Georgia this year for a final season. He's not sitting on the bench, but Monroe Freeling is a guy who I think will win that job at some point and be a very good player. Georgia's offensive line is loaded, but watch Monroe Freeling at that right tackle job. He's very good. If he doesn't start this year, he will next year, but he's a guy that I think is playing better and better, and I think the staff's really high on him. At wide receiver, a couple guys I think are going to make some noise. Colby Young, the wide receiver from transfer in from Miami. If y'all been watching my videos, you know I am very high on this guy. Very high on him. He's got size. He's a big catch radius guy. He's got big, strong hands. He runs like a deer at that size. He's going to be tough to slow down. And if he continues to progress and get better, that's a real weapon, right? Everyone knows about Dylan Bell, at least real college football fans know all about Dylan Bell. So I don't think he's like a guy that emerges, right? Because people already know who he is. But Anthony Evans he's an electric wide receiver, track speed, ball skills, agility, acceleration. He checks all those boxes as it relates to speed and burst and explosiveness. He's the guy who I think is going to quietly climb that wide receiver board because they like him a lot, and you can't teach that speed. You can teach guys how to run routes and be more agile and become a wide receiver, or at least good coaches can coach and teach you that. You can't teach his speed. He's got it. He's a wide receiver I think we're going to hear rumblings about. On the defensive line, Kristen Miller's a name to know. I think he could emerge. He was in that 22 class. So this is year 3. This is the beginning of year 3 for Kristen Miller. Flashed occasionally here and there. I think he's going to flash even more this season. Learning from guys like Nazir Stackhouse, Tyrion Ingram Dawkins is a guy who needs to emerge. It's a money year. It's a money year for that former 5-star. But Joseph Jonah Ajanye, just a big, raw, physical, athletic kid out of Texas who has only been playing football since his freshman or sophomore year of high school. I forgot what he told me. I think his freshman year may have been the first season he's ever played football. His football's still way ahead of him, way down the road. He has a very high ceiling. He hasn't even come close to scratching or sniffing the surface of his football career. He's going to get better and better and better, especially working under Trey Scott. So he is a freshman defensive lineman to keep an eye on that. I think people are going to start hearing about more and more. Inside linebacker, C.J. Allen, I think everyone's going to start talking about him more and more. He was a freshman last year that played a lot, started a lot. Raylan Wilson right next to him. He started against Florida State in the Orange Bowl. He opted in, whereas everyone else at Florida State opted out. Raylan Wilson, he was just a freshman. He said, I'm going to light y'all up. And he did play a really good game. Jalen Walker is a guy who I think he needs a money year as well. Can play inside, can play outside. I mean, dude looks like a WWE superstar. The way he's built, he is physical. 6'3", like 225, maybe 230, just muscle everywhere. And he flashed. He's one of the best pass rushers on the team. He can get after the quarterback. But he's been a rotational guy. And I think he's played more on the edge last year, where I think when they signed him, I think the initial plan was, hey, we're going to play you an inside linebacker. But they've got inside linebackers. They've got a lot. They need him to emerge as not only as a big pass rushing weapon, but an every down guy too. And I think this is year 3 for him. He was a highly ranked kid coming in. He's flashed big playability. This year 3, I think, is really important for Jalen Walker. He's got to find the field somewhere. They moved Micah Williams to the jack linebacker, which is one of the outside linebacker positions, really. You've got guys at inside linebacker who are ready to go. So Jalen Walker has to find the field, stay there, and make plays. I think he has the ability to do so. I think he has the talent to do so. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's the guy whose name you start hearing more and more about this spring as someone who's ready, who's locked in to have a breakout season this year. But he's got to see the field. He's competing with a lot of really talented linebackers this season, but he's got to make it happen. In the secondary, I think Dalen Everett is going to have a better year than people think. I know it really looked bad for him at times, getting twisted around. I think it was against Alabama, but I know there was one bad rep against Georgia Tech and some against Ole Miss. I still think he has the potential to be a very good cornerback and maybe one of the best in the SEC. If he keeps playing better and keep developing, I think he's a guy who I think, down the road I will start hearing that, hey, Dalen Everett really made a big, really progressed this spring. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to get out of my mouth, that this spring could be big for Dalen Everett and his improvement, his confidence, all that stuff. He needs it. And then KJ Bolden at safety, Janelle Aguero at safety. Those are two guys who I think you're going to hear a lot about this spring, especially Janelle Aguero, with this being his second spring in Athens. That's big. It really is big. So year 2, I think he's excited to compete for a starting job, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was in that starting rotation against the Clemson Tigers. So a few guys on offense, a few guys on defense that I think could really crush it this week and next week and for the next several weeks in spring practice leading up to G-Day. Those are my thoughts. Who do you think could have a breakout season next year, or breakout spring right now? Who do you have? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. You can sign up to Dawg Post today by signing up to our free newsletter. That link is right down below. It's free to sign up. It's free to read a lot of stories we have on the site. So really hope you enjoyed this video, but definitely want to see you over on the website. Thanks.